I'm Makini Smith. After going through a divorce, my sister passing away, experiencing narcissistic abuse, and some significant health scares, I realized through sharing my story that I wasn't alone in my suffering. Suffering, subjective distress generated by the experience of being out of balance. In a deep dive to holistically heal mind, body, and soul is where I discovered peace, clarity, and connection. It is impossible to be truly wise without some real-life hardship, and we cannot develop post-traumatic wisdom without making it through, and most importantly, through it together. Social connection builds resilience, and resilience helps create post-traumatic wisdom, and that wisdom leads to hope. Hope for you and others witnessing and participating in your healing, and hope for your community. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. Thank you for joining us on the Heal Her podcast, HEAL. Honor, elevate, and love her podcast, formerly known as the You Walk in My Stilettos podcast, the top 1.5% most popular show globally, where we have conversations with extraordinary women on their journey towards wholeness and harmony. And since you're already here, you may as well subscribe. As a certified mindset coach, guiding women towards peace, clarity, and connection within, supporting the direction of the system toward wholeness, my goal here is to help you thrive. Susie Taaffe is the CEO and founder of Skanties, anti-shapewear, dedicated to empowering women to embrace their natural form, reject unnatural beauty standards, and celebrate their unique and beautiful bodies. Skanties undergarments integrate the comfort of yoga pants, the silkiness of nylon, and the breathability and hygienic use of cotton underwear that circumvent panty lines, thigh chafing, and muffin tops. Susie is at the forefront of the anti-shapewear movement, which rejects prolonged body compression and the use of non-breathable synthetic materials that have harmful effects. With her decade experience working as an engineer and having designed and manufactured her own maternity clothing brand, Susie successfully launched Skanties in the Australian market in 2019 as a single mother of 3 young children. Having launched Skanties in the US market in 2023, Susie continues to expand this global movement, remaining dedicated to helping women reclaim their feminine power through fashion and to empower people to love themselves from the inside out. Skanties has been seen in Grazia, the NYC Journal, New York Weekly, and much, much more. So please welcome to the show, Susie Taaffe.
Thank you, Makini. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and share your journey with us and let us know all about the wonderful things that you've been up to, but also how you've been able to get there. I just truly appreciate when women like yourself, we know that you're busy building a business and being a mom and doing all these things, but I love when you're able to come on and just share the depth of your story, because I feel like, with the internet, people see your lives on social media and those things and feel like all those successes and things are unattainable for them. So I love when you ladies come on and just share how you've worked through your adversities and the things that you've been able to get through, so that other women that are listening can realize we are all pretty much the same. We all have our struggles, but we keep pushing forward.
Oh, thank you. I'm so passionate about all of these topics, so I could talk to my blue in the face.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So before we get to where you are presently, I love to start at the very beginning. I love to ask about your childhood, because I feel like before society started to shape us, or our parents started to impact us with their belief systems, as kids, we had these vivid imaginations of who we wanted to be, what we wanted to do before all the limitations. So I would love to know, who did Susie want to be when she was a little girl?
You know, it's really funny because I always wanted to be a mum, just from whenever I can remember. And I remember I went, and I was actually quite academic, and I remember my school, it was kind of, well, no, you're not going to be a stay-at-home mum. I'm like, yeah, I am going to be a stay-at-home mum. And I ended up going on to be an engineer, and the school kept coming back, come in, inspire the women if the schools are going to be engineers. It's like, no, I want to be a mum. So and it's really interesting because from as far back as I can remember, it was just a motivation and I didn't have kids until I was 28 was when I had my first. But it was such a driver of my core being. It was like I was put on this earth this time and I had to get the kids first. And it wasn't really, I suppose, until after I had my kids that I realized actually I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mum. I had the kids. And I was like, actually, that's not fulfilling me enough. And then I started sort of questioning. And yeah, so probably it was after 3 kids. I had them quite quickly too. So they were all under 3 and a bit years. And I was like, oh, actually, don't want to do that now. It was so funny. That was my driver. Kids
Wow.
was always my motivation.
Wow. Well, that is beautiful. And I can see, you know, as a mom myself with 3 kids who are now, you know, all pretty much adults, like that used to be my focus as well. My kids used to be my why. And then there came a point where I was like, okay, these are other humans that have a mind of their own. And I need something greater to do that isn't just being a mom. And there's nothing wrong with just being a mom either. So I get it. Totally, completely get it. So, okay, share with us your journey of how you got to where you are presently, including the business, the kids, all that stuff. Give us, I guess, a quick, the quick version of your story.
Version. That's actually quite funny because it's. I can give you a super quick version, but it zigzags everywhere. So as I mentioned, I did engineering at uni, and I was then working in electrolytic waste metal recovery, which I can promise you is not very exciting. So I was like, how do I get out of this? So I pressed the boggle button on that and jumped into a finance master's. And I was thinking, I love finance, I love money, I love that sort of thing. I thought I could do that with an engineering twist. But then in my last subject, we did an international business subject, which propelled me into creating a maternity clothing manufacturing and wholesaling business with my sister. So wow. two 24-year-old girls designing maternity clothing, have never been pregnant, which is completely out there. And we learned so much and it was amazing. And then the GFC hit and then another career pivot. And I ended up back in engineering doing gas compressor station construction in far Western Australia. So like in the middle of nowhere, like we had to get private planes in there and our own trucks, our own logistics, everything, which was actually quite similar to maternity manufacturing in China, really. And then I got married, had the 3 kids, then got divorced. And the divorce sort of propelled me into the big life questions, which I'm sure we'll dig in deeper after this, but the questioning of what is it all about. And that led me to start my business, Skanties, with a product that I designed for myself in 2008. So years and years and years before that, purely out of necessity, I wanted something that made me feel good, that solved thigh chafing, didn't give me a muffin top, was super thin and flexible, felt like I was wearing nothing. So, and I didn't realize other people needed it until a few girlfriends sort of opened up and like, well, how are you wearing that so comfortably and gliding along with your thighs not rubbing? And I was like, well, I wear these. And that was when I realized, oh, these have a commercial viability because I suppose thigh chafing is sort of such a shameful topic. And I think we're getting so much better about talking about things like that. But we don't, back in 2008, we weren't really discussing it. There wasn't body positive influences like talking about cellulite and like thigh chafing and thing is it making it normal.
Yes.
And so I hadn't realized actually other women get this problem. I was just sitting in my shame all by myself. And so then that's when I realized the commercial viability. And along with the questioning of what is life about, I thought, well, this is a product that actually helps women feel good in their bodies and feel good about themselves. So if I was to be putting my energy into this, as opposed to being an engineer, which you can do, but it doesn't make your heart sing. Some people it might, some people it really might, but high vis is not, orange is not my color. So for me, the business was a great start in the direction of helping other people feel good. So a real service-based purpose, but also, and I didn't realize how much at the time, but all of the content creation and things that goes along with the business is all, it gives me my passion for fashion, which I love, style and fashion. So all of that content creativity and it is brought out as well. So it was just ticking a lot of boxes, although that was 2015 now. So it hasn't been an easy journey to get here, but the spark of passion was correct.
Wow. Okay. So there's so much there that you said that I want to unpack. So let's start with, I mean, you said when you were younger and you always wanted to be a mother. Before you even had kids, you started a maternity line. You know, that's where your heart led you, right? That's where your heartstrings were pulling you to. Then you get married, you have kids, and then you get divorced. So let's start with creating the Skanties, because I feel like a lot of successful businesswomen start with, if it's a product, it's something that they needed for themselves. Something they needed for themselves that they didn't see in the marketplace. And if we all stay quiet and we don't share our stories, we don't share our struggles, we wouldn't know or have the awareness that other people are struggling with this thing, that there's something that can be produced to help a lot of people. And at the same time, obviously, it allows you to create income off of it. And if someone is in a service-based business, I find that it's typically, you know, providing a service that they didn't have when they needed, right? It's always about fulfilling a need that we have. So I would love if you could share for the women listening, I guess, your thought process, even from, you know, creating it for yourself and realizing that other people needed it, and even the courage and vulnerability that takes to even go out there and now talk about these things.
Definitely. So it was 2008 and I was just getting out of the maternity business is what was happening. And so really, it's quite interesting because you can see how all roads lead to, all the different pathways led to that particular moment, because I had the skill set. And also, I think the way that they teach you in engineering at uni, it's always problem solving. Everything is like, we've got this issue. What can we do to it to create a solution out the back end? And it's a framework of thought. So I suppose then I had naturally applied that framework to maternity clothing. It was like, how can we adapt this so that it can do X, Y, Z? Like we need this garment, but we need it to grow here and grow there. And what like clever adaptations, what fastenings can we do? What buckles, what elastic type can we do? So I think when it came to creating Skanties, I had all of that experience in, well, that doesn't exist, but I want this functionality. So I hate it when the elastic cuts in at the top of the waistband and then you get the muffin top.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and for me, it's all about the dialogue things create as well. If you have that muffin top from the elastic, the self-talk is not good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So everything has like a mental component as well. It's like, how do we get the chatter to be positive?
Yes.
And so I was like, well, what do you wear all the time? Yoga waistbands. Like they were big in the early 2000s. Remember when the yoga pants came out?
Yeah.
And you were like, well, why do we like to wear them nonstop? So it was sort of like just digging into each specific area. So yoga pants we wear, and because the structural engineering explanation for why they're so comfortable is because they actually displace the pressure of the waistband over a larger surface area. So instead of it digging in and the skin spilling over the top, it's graduated down. So that's why you get a smooth line, but whilst it feels comfortable. So there's the actual like engineering behind it. So just picking apart things like that. And then I wanted lots of the other, like what I call it is, you know how stockings are sort of all knitted in one piece?
Yes.
lots of the other options are all knitted in one piece. So that's what causes the rolling up in the legs and think like, you don't want things to be annoying. So I was like, well, I used to wear bike pants all the time through school, etc. I thought, well, bike pants don't roll up. So what is different about them? And it's because they have a seam structurally sewn, it's like a mini waistband. So it's like just incorporating. And then it was, but we can't have cotton on the outside because cotton clings on cotton. But we want cotton in the underwear area because we want it to be breathable, because lots of women are susceptible to infection down there if they have any synthetic. So I was like, well, I'm just going to cut out a hole there and mash that, and that's going to be cotton, but the rest of it's going to be like super soft and silky. And I suppose it might be the way my brain thinks. It's like people probably would normally say, well, that's not how that's not how you do that. It's like, well, I was like, I don't care how you do it. I'm just going to do it,
yes.
Which I did. And I suppose that was the same with all those years for maternity clothing. It was all like, well, yeah, that is what it needs to look like, but it needs to do X, Y, Z. So I think I had years and years of training like that. But that doesn't mean I think people can still do these things. Mm-hmm. And if their brains don't think that way, if they have an idea, there's so many people out there that hit me up. I love, it's one of my all-time favorite things is people come to me with ideas, and I love to like just shoot and workshop with them. Okay, how could we do that?
Yes.
And I think there's specific people that have a brain like that. So just find your friend that is that workshopper. They'll probably figure it out in about 15 minutes, and then they'll send you off on your way with a little to-do list.
But what I love about what you explain about that, like even in coming up with the product, obviously on the backside throughout what you're dealing with in your personal world, like, was that around the same time that you were going through the divorce? Was it after you created the product? Let's speak to, because there are so many women that are listening that maybe are entrepreneurs and they are afraid of pursuing a divorce because they feel like they can't manage the kids and the business and all those things on their own. Or maybe there's someone who's going through it right now that needs those, reassuring words or words of advice. What was your process like?
Okay, so the product I'd already created, so that I just hadn't thought about the commercial viability. So it was more thinking, I could make this into a business that would fulfill me and help others. But my biggest thing I did in my divorce, I think literally the day after I got divorced, I got an au pair. So I had an au pair. She was American, actually, and I had her for the first year. And I remember a counselor saying to me when I was going through it, that's when I had my spiritual awakening in the lead up to the divorce. So there was about 12 months of where I knew it had changed and I was headed down that path. And she said, what's your biggest fear? And I said, well, I'm going to have to do it all by myself. And she said, but you already are doing it. So, and I was like, oh. And she's like, and then you'll probably have every other weekend off. And as a single mom, you probably get a bit more support and help. So she said, you're actually going to be better off than you are when you're in it, doing it 24/7 nonstop. Anyway, when I got my au pair, it was like the heavens opened. And I was like, oh my God, I have a wife. And I was like, oh, and so you've got two women running a household now. And
right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so question for you, for the American Canadian listeners who are not in Australia, because I know that there's some terms in Australia, because my business partner is Australian, there's some terms in Australia that need to be translated on this end. So I'm just going to assume when you say au pair, you mean like a nanny, right?
Yeah, but they're travelers. So you don't pay them nanny rates. They live with you, and they and they usually exchange so many hours a week for so much pocket money, it's called. And There's a special visa for it in Australia, so that they can come over here and work. I think America has it. I have looked it up as well.
Yeah, they have like live-in nannies and things like that here. Yes.
And they're usually on a traveling visa, and you can have them for, I think 12 months is the max, or 6 months to 12 months. And they come from all over the world, but they're a very affordable version of childcare, because another thing I didn't mention was when I got divorced, 6 months later, my ex-husband went bankrupt.
Oh,
So I had the rug really ripped out under my feet. So I really understand. Like, I had to move house into the cheapest rental I could find. I had to, like, everything got pared back. Like, I don't even think we could afford meat. Like,
wow.
we were really on the biggest budget. But I knew, and I think I paid my au pair at the time about $250 a week. But that $250 a week meant I could work. So if I can earn enough money that, like, I factored in her wages with me working. Right. And there is also arrangements later on down the track. You can get au pairs where they're just a part-time au pair. So you don't pay them anything. It's literally just the food and the board. So I always made sure I rented a house that could facilitate me having an au pair, because I knew I needed the help in order to get where I wanted to go. And right. I suppose for one of my passions too is empowering women that are in those situations, because a lot of women I find can sometimes slip into a little bit of the victim and the martyr mode, where the poor me, he did X, Y, Z, the poor me, I'm left to do all of this work. And I really love to empower them and say, actually, it's like, you're free to choose whatever you want. Like, you are free to get whatever help you want. Yeah. You're free to eat whatever you want, watch whatever you want. And actually really try to instill in them that actually you have freedom to choose whatever. You're not a victim. That you don't need to martyr yourself for your kids. And I think the best thing that happened to my kids was having all these different personalities coming into the house from all over the world. I think it's so important that we instill that we are not the center of our children's universe. Like, we are there and they are tethered to us, but introducing so many different personalities and cultures, and I think is so brilliant for their development. That I am so passionate about women getting themselves some help in whatever form. And maybe it's not an au pair, maybe it's other ideas I've given friends is to maybe share afternoons. If you work one afternoon and a friend doesn't, then they take the kids that day, you take the kids on the day you don't work. And there's ways that you can do it, but let's get that community around us again, because that's the number one thing I will say. Women, get yourself some help.
I love that. I love that advice for so many reasons, because I feel like we've been so conditioned to not ask for help and to try to do it all. But your example, your story is an example that it doesn't have to be done a traditional way or the way that we may think it has to be done. To your point, there are a lot of women who are married that are doing it on their own anyway. They're not getting the help. And I think whether you exchange resources or value with family or friends, whether you hire help for, taking care of the kids, doing the laundry, groceries, whether you outsource and delegate, whatever you can even afford to maintain your sanity and whatever works best for your healing journey. So I love that you share that.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about it.
Yes. Okay. With having a business, going through divorce, you now have help with the kids. At the end of the day, there's still that quote unquote title of being a single mother. And I know for a lot of women, and I know I did that in the very beginning when I was going through my divorce and as a single mom, it's almost like we use that as a crutch to say, I can't do this because I'm a single mom or what have you. Like, what advice would you give to the single mom that are listening right now, aside from getting help?
Let me think. I've actually been a single mom now for 8 years. So I think and my kids are bigger now. So when I first got divorced, they were 5, 3, and 1, which when I look back on photos and I'm like, oh my God, they were babies. And in truth, I think in hindsight, I actually go, oh my God, I don't even know how I survived. I really don't. I think as single mums, we really need to find our little glimmers of gratitude. Like, because I've been through some pretty dark times, and I always laugh about I have a stool in the kitchen. That's my crying stool. And it's one of the little tiny kid ones. And I always sit on that and often cry. And the kids are quite used to it. But it's just letting the emotions, because it is overwhelming. You don't have people to you don't have people like someone, you don't really have someone in your court. You're on. And whilst their dad does have them like in shared custody, still the mental load comes onto the women all the time. I just think it's the way we're programmed. And so you will, no matter what your custody arrangements are, a lot of the parenting will fall on you. I think it's because we have the empathetic nature and the caring nature. And, this is in my situation. So I think definitely having your other single mum girlfriends around you is so important because they get it. Mm-hmm. So to get that, like to soundboard things with them, to even like vent some frustrations with them, because they really get what it is to be 24/7 like on your own, and it's actually tough. It is hard. So sending love to all the single mums out there, and I see you, and it's tough, and sending you love, and you're doing a great job.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%. I just want to reiterate for those that are listening, like the importance of community. Community and having a healthy community, a supportive community is like one of the pillars of resilience. And like you said, it's tough. It is so tough. And your kids were super small when you were going through your divorce. Like when I was going through mine, my kids were 4, 9, and 12. And I still look back and like, I don't know how I got through that, but we did, right? So that community is such a important piece there, because as much as we may feel like we're alone in our situations, when you have that community of support and understanding and like-minded people, that sounding board, that social proof where you realize you're not alone. You're not by yourself. What you're going through, you're not the only one on the planet going through it. So it helps reduce that poor me mentality, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also you need to have your magic toolbox, I call it, which is your magic toolbox of when you're having a rough day, be kind to yourself. Like what you are doing is actually tremendously tough, and it's not supposed to be done by one person. Like we are supposed to not only have partners, we're supposed to have a village around us. So we need to supplement with things. So for me, instantly music, like have your playlist, have your I need to be picked up playlist ready to go, and you put it on loud and full bore, or it might be your classical music play, whatever it is that can bring you out. And you just have to do on those bad times, go through so for me, music, bath. I hop in the water and instantly I play a little game, close your eyes, and you could be in any bath in the whole world. So you can be in like the penthouse in the most exclusive hotel. Like if you're in the bath there and you close your eyes, it would feel exactly the same. So I use the bath as a little time. You could, if you're a shower person, you could do the same thing. A shower feels the same no matter where you are. So I do a little time traveling.
I love that.
Yeah, it's fantastic because you just close your eyes and picture wherever you want to be, and it would feel like that. It's just, I love it.
As a mindset coach, I love that because we do a lot of visualization practices, things to help people visualize what they would love their life to look like, closing their eyes and envisioning, creating that picture of their life for themselves. So doing that in the bath or the shower and visualizing being in different spaces, countries, like I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Okay, so your baths and listening to music sound like two of your self-care routines. What are some other things that are part of your self-care routine?
I'm actually doing a real big drive on sleep at the moment. We all know sleep is so important. So I know how much better I am when I've had decent sleep, and I'm a terrible sleeper. So I have been like really to the point of no blue light for certain times, reading books only before bed, no caffeine after 12, or like trying to tick all the boxes for sleep because I think, and even my friends, if they're having a bad day, I'm just like, go to sleep.
Yes.
Just go to sleep. And then let's put, I love to do that too, is also, I call it putting it on the shelf. So there's stuff, and like if you don't want to look at it right now, just put it on the shelf. And that's actually one tip for anyone going through money struggles. When I was in the really bad parts of where, as I said, I couldn't like grow. I was moving $2.67 from one account to go to that account to pay that $5 for do you know what I mean? Like it was tough. And I love mindset as well. And I was like, I can't sit in this lack day in, day out. So what I used to do was I would, put it on the shelf. I'm just like, I'm going to live, because you can't create and live in abundance if you're constantly thinking about lack. So
Absolutely.
I do put it on the shelf, and then however often I had to, I used to do it once a month. I would bring it down off the shelf, and I would sit and I would roll it and I'd work it all out and how are we surviving for another month. Or I'd do it whenever the paycheck came in. I would working it out, and then I'll go back on the shelf for you. And then off I go about with my positive creation and abundance, and I can do this and then bring it down. And so that is for me, was a huge part of getting through that, because and the same also with maybe like anyone going through irritations with ex-husbands or something like that. Again, I have to put them on the shelf.
Yes.
And then occasionally I'll bring it down, and he might get a sternly worded email. And then up the shelf it goes back again. So yes. I love the shelf.
I love that. Okay, I want to unpack both of those things that you said there. One, sleep. I think, especially again, if you're a mom and you're, building a business and you're doing all these things, there's only so many hours in a day. We can't create more hours in a day. And I feel like oftentimes we're trying to cram everything. And I hear this often through my clients where they're like, I have so many things to do. Everything's important. So is sleep. When you're not getting enough sleep, you're not functioning. Your body is like not okay. And it'll show the signs of it. They say like someone who is extremely tired is almost just as bad as someone who is like intoxicated or drunk, like especially driving like that. Like it affects your vision. It affects your mood. It affects so much. And I had to learn through my healing journey the importance of sleep and how it's like self-harm, not getting enough sleep. We can't take care of the world and not be taking care of ourselves. And then two, your point about putting on the shelf, I love, love, love for many reasons. One, I love it because, again, as a coach, we're not trying to get people to, I'm not trying to push toxic positivity and get people to only think about the positive and only focus on the light, because the dark does exist. But what we focus on grows. And if we are sitting in this state of constantly thinking about the debt, the lack, all of the negative things, we continue to attract more of that. But when you put those things on the shelf, it allows you to focus on the growth, on the thriving, on the abundance, all of those things. And then you can take it down to deal with what you have the capacity for, and put it back on the shelf. And the putting the ex-husband on the shelf, I have been doing that since 2009. So I love that. Yeah, I thank you. Because I used to think, okay, well, maybe it's just my zero tolerance policy that I've grown into, where I'm just like, yeah, I'm not dealing with you right now. That's me putting him on the shelf. But for my own sanity, my own mental health, my own healing, it's required in order for us to keep moving. I feel like I hear so many stories of women who are going through a divorce or dealing with their exes, and the constant stress that they are under. And it's like every conversation is a complaint about the ex, but they're giving that so much energy, so much power. Put them on the shelf.
Yeah. Yeah. We can look at it like once a month and then it goes back.
Yes.
I've even got actually a friend I recommended, because she was getting a stream of messages from her ex-husband. And what we did, it was on WhatsApp. So what we did was we put him in archive.
Yes.
So it's the same thing. She can now, instead of him interrupting her day, she chooses when she goes in to see what like barrage of harassment she's received, but she is in control then of when she receives it. So mute them, archive them, put them on the shelf, do whatever you can to protect your own space and bubble. And it's like, what you're going to go in for when you go into it, but that's okay, because you're in control of when you receive it.
Absolutely. I love that as a self-care tip for the women that are listening, because like you said, when you're bombarded with negative messages, especially if you're connected to this person who's like the father of your children or whoever that you have to deal with, you don't have to deal with them when they choose to offload on you, when they choose to emotionally dump on you. Putting them on do not disturb, putting them on mute, putting them in the archives allows you to control when, instead of you having a great day and then a message from them comes in and there goes your entire day. So I think that's a great tip for those who are listening, to take away from this part of the conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would love to know, what is one thing that you forgive yourself for? Because I feel like as women, we're naturally hard on ourselves. But when you have been through so much, you've worn so many hats, you've been the wife, you've been the mom, you're the entrepreneur, the CEO, all of these things. Obviously, things happen that we may wish have happened differently. And in order to give ourselves grace, we need to forgive ourselves for those things. So what is one thing that you forgive yourself for?
Oh, well, I would have to say probably I got a little bit wild when I first became a single mom. And I did a lot of partying, which probably wasn't to my highest good. And so I often do go back, and I do you love visualization. I do the visualization of me going back and hugging that version of myself. And so there's been a lot of hugs. And even actually, do you know what I find really interesting is when I think back to times maybe when I was crying on my kitchen floor, or I do a lot of crying, which is fine. It's great. I love it. But I can nearly feel a presence with me. I can nearly feel it's going to be okay kind of presence. And I think it's me now visiting her then. So I'm very spiritual, and I love there is no time. You can visit yourself whenever you like. And another one of my favorite mindset things at the moment is visiting my 80-year-old self. And like, what is her advice? What is her wisdom? What does she have to say about whatever it is? And so I think my 80-year-old self has visited and been with me through every single time as well. Like, I think especially like if you feel like you're alone, just imagine your 80-year-old self and what would she say to you, and how would she be comforting you? And like, she has so much love for you at every part. Even if you think back to you like a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and we're so hard on ourselves, and we you just want to get, it's just everything about the hug. It's just hug that version of you. And I can, when I look back, I can feel the energy was there.
I love it. I love that you envision the older version of yourself. So I would love to know, what advice would you give your future self?
Oh, she's smarter than me.
I mean, people typically ask, what advice would you give your younger self? But I know from my own kids, because they teach me lessons on a daily basis. So when I think about, sometimes it's not necessarily age or maturity. We have things that we can teach each other. So if you were thinking of the older version of you, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, okay. This one does require thought. I find this one really tricky. I just want to say we rock.
Okay.
I really want to give her gratitude, actually. I want to give her gratitude to the older version of me. Maybe for being there with me the whole time. I don't know if I've got any advice for her, though. I just think, thank you, gratitude.
Okay. And earlier when you were speaking to, what you would forgive yourself for, and you talked about when you're going through the divorce and you partied a lot, I feel like we are harder on ourselves than we need to be, because, you're grieving, you're going through a process, and you're trying to find joy. You're trying to find, the things that make you feel good. I too partied very hard going through my divorce, and my kids, just this week were looking through old pictures, and they were like, Mom, like, a lot of these pictures, you're holding a disposable cup in your hand or a bottle of something. What were you going through? And me, who can barely handle a glass of wine now, I look back and it's like, I was trying to find joy. I was trying to numb the hurt. I was processing my grief. So I guess even when I think about, when I asked you that question, it's like, you needing to forgive yourself for being hard on you, going through that divorce. Like, you were allowed to party. You needed that. Your soul needed that. That was a season in your life where, those things helped you get through what you were going through.
That's so interesting that you just use that language, because as you can see in my response, I'm actually still not forgiving, but I'm actually thinking I need forgiveness for that, as opposed to just like the words that you just used, the hurt. You can actually now, in hindsight, you can nearly palpably feel the hurt that you're trying to mask with all those things. And I suppose, the forgiveness for thinking that I shouldn't be hurt, I suppose, is a massive one. And even obviously I haven't even reconciled with it yet, because I was trying to forgive myself for partying, as opposed to forgiving myself for not realizing I deserved to be hurt.
Yes, absolutely. You deserve to feel joy. You deserve, all of that. I feel like when I was going through my divorce, not only was I grieving the loss of that relationship, I was grieving the loss of what I thought my life was going to be like. I was grieving the life I thought I was going to be able to provide for my kids. I was grieving friendships. There was so much grief. And in the partying, it allowed me pockets of joy so that I could get through the next phase of grief. So I think, especially for yourself and the women that are listening, sometimes we're hard on ourselves for seasons in our life, not realizing that we needed those seasons to get through it. We talk about how we go through childhood traumas and trauma responses, and it's like the things that we did in that time to get through it, or that helped us survive it. Yes, they may not be, helpful to us now, but we needed it then to get through and to be able to be who we are today.
Oh, yes. And I clearly see that now, but it's interesting to have it. Yes, 100%. We're just surviving. We're just surviving. And to all the women out there that are just surviving right now as well, like, you're doing a great job. And sending you all the love in the world.
Absolutely. I think this podcast and therapy has helped me to reframe a lot of the perceptions that I had around the behaviors that we do, or how we act when we're hurting. Our body, our nervous system is in fight or flight mode. We're just trying to survive. We're not thinking about thriving. We're not thinking about, the solutions. We are just trying to stay alive. So I think we need to give ourselves grace for those seasons, and not be so hard on ourselves.
Yes. And we're also trying to keep little humans alive as well, and get them to thrive as well. Like, oh my God.
I don't know. Sometimes I'm surprised I managed to do that, because I killed all my plants.
Oh, I'm terrible with plants too.
Okay, so before we go to the final segment of the show, I want you to tell the listeners where they can stay connected with you, where they can learn more about Skanties, where they can purchase as well.
So come join us on Instagram. We love Instagram. We love to give uplifting messages. It's all about female empowering and empowerment, and loving yourself and accepting yourself where you're at. And so at Skanties is our handle, Skanties. And then skanties.co is our website. If you're on LinkedIn, look me up, Susie Taaffe. I love to talk to you there. I just connect, please, because we're all about, it's not just about the product. It's about empowering women to live their best lives and to really feel that inner self-worth and love.
Awesome. So I will have all of the links where they can connect with you in the detailed section below the episode, so they don't have to search too far.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Makini.
No problem. So for the final segment of the show, it's kind of like a rapid fire. You can answer one word or one sentence, but I also don't like to box people in. That makes me claustrophobic. So if you feel the need to expand, you're more than welcome to do so.
Right.
Okay. First question. When was the last time you cried?
Oh, yesterday.
Okay. What would you say is your superpower?
Oh, I actually think my superpower is my intuition.
Awesome. Okay. When was the last time you apologized to someone else?
Oh, 400 times yesterday.
Okay. What's the first thing you do in the morning and the last thing you do at night?
Sadly, I check my phone to see what time it is and how much sleep I've had. And then coffee. And the last thing I do at night is usually put on a YouTube, something motivational to go to sleep to.
Okay. When and where are you the happiest?
Oh, the beach, Noosa in Queensland is my favorite place in the world.
Okay. If you could create one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would that be?
You have to love yourself.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. And last but not least, what do you wish women would do more of?
Love themselves. Not sure how we're going to police that law, but definitely love yourself.
That is the perfect answer. Honestly, that is what this whole entire show and platform is about, to, help us all to learn how to love ourselves just a little bit more. So thank you, Susie, for sharing your story and your journey. And I appreciate your time and your wisdom and all of the gems that you gave today, because I know that you gave some amazing gems. So I hope those that were listening took notes. And if they didn't, they need to go back and listen again and take some notes.
Thank you so much, Makini. And girls, you've got this. You're stronger than you think you are.
Amen to that. Absolutely. And to all of you healers out there, until next time, rate the show, leave us a review on Apple Podcast. We want to hear what part of the show resonated with you most. We want to hear what part of Susie's journey touched you. Feel free to leave us a review and share your thoughts. I want to thank each and every one of you that continues to listen each week to help the show rank globally in the top 1.5% of most popular podcasts out there. And there are over 3 million. So I am so, so grateful. If you could think of, I'm going to challenge you, if you can think of 2 friends that would receive value from hearing today's episode, please share it with them. Feel free to even screenshot this week's episode, and you can tag us on Instagram. You can tag Susie at Skanties, Skanties. You can tag myself at The Real Makini Smith. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. So let's continue to heal her.